Hey there, everybody. I hope everybody has had a wonderful week. My name's Daniel Nichols. I will be filling in for Rainey this week and doing the discussion this week. I'm from Gadsden, Alabama, and I've known Rainey for some years now. Really become many years now that I've known him, and he asked me to do the discussion this week, and of course we've been talking about LMA, and I'm somebody that has greatly benefited from LMA and experienced it. On the person needing the help side, of course, LMA Rainey put the program together, and it's been used now in our treatment centers here in Alabama and other places for some years now since he put it together. And I'm going to really discuss today just some the things that stand out the most to me about LMA, how it's helped me, and how it's really benefited me and helped me with my relationship with God as well. From from the perspective of I went through Rafa as a client and went through rehab, and so from that perspective, just going to shed a little light on what it meant for me. Um, so of course, LMA stands for Life More Abundant, and going through uh, Rafa, the program there, and going and classes and everything else. And LMA helped me a lot. It helped me have a life that was and actual life and to have a life more abundantly for sure. So a little bit, I'll go through a little bit of backstory for me. I started using drugs very early age. Just would use anything really. Just whatever I could get my hands on, and it started with marijuana and developed from there. I went into alcohol, I went into pills, just all types of hard drugs from there. Just never really stopped. It just kept getting worse and worse, and my life was really on a crash course of doom, negativity, just nothing good. Wasn't really a life to live. I spent a lot of time as a juvenile in juvenile prisons, and um, just a lot of issues with law enforcement, of course, because breaking the law. But a lot of trouble there between juvenile prisons and rehabs and this, that, and the other. Nothing ever seemed to work or really get through to me. I grew up in church as a child, and I had a working relationship with the Lord. I feel like when I was younger, but I strayed from that. And my mother died when I was 11, and I think when that happened for me, I really started distancing myself from God. He didn't distance himself from me. He was still right there, but I didn't want to acknowledge he was there. I didn't want to participate anymore in a relationship with him. I was angry at God. I was angry at the world when my mom died. I was just an angry kid, and didn't want to have a relationship with him, didn't want anything to do with God. I was just so angry. And that's really around that time is when I first tried marijuana. I was 11, smoked marijuana for the first time, and it provided an escape for me to get away from those terrible feelings of grief and sadness and just I was in a terrible state. I didn't know how to handle her death, and my dad and my family tried to help me the best they could, but it just I was so young, and she and I were very close, and I didn't know how to deal with it. I really didn't. So I turned to marijuana as a coping mechanism because I didn't know how to cope with that loss on my own. So I turned to marijuana, and it provided that escape. It was something that I really enjoyed, something that I felt like, hey, this is I feel better doing this. I'm not sad and crying and down in the dumps, so I feel so much better. Little did I know that it would quickly become um, something that my world was sort of revolving around very quickly. I don't believe you can get addicted to marijuana in itself, and I think you can get addicted to the feeling it gives you, that high. And so I became addicted to that feeling. And then when that wasn't enough, alcohol. And when that wasn't enough, and it snowballed from there very quickly for me and got out of control. And then, before I knew it, I was doing drugs, hard drugs, selling drugs, just an idiot. And I like to say a lot of times I'm a recovering idiot. I'm a recovering addict and a recovering a lot of things, but mainly I'm a recovering idiot for sure. But it got out of hand for me. Like I said, went to juvenile prisons. I went to um, juvenile jails, all of those things multiple times. I went to various rehabs. I went to Bradford and all these other places, and nothing ever seemed to help me. Nothing ever seemed to work. Nothing seemed to click. Nothing changed, and it just that's just how it was. It seems like every time I would get out of a place, whether it was Bradford or a juvenile facility, a juvenile prison, it wasn't long after I'd get out. It was right back to the races, and every time it was worse than the time before. Um, nothing seemed to really nothing seemed to really help me. Nothing seemed to work for me, and I never really got that relationship with God again. I never reconnected on that, and I just it never resurfaced. Again, he never left my side, but I never reached back out to him, and I never tried to have a relationship with him again during all those years that I was in addiction. So fast forward, through many years of pain and suffering and just miserable living, and I end up in as an adult. I've then gotten into trouble as an adult, and um, I'm in the county jail this time, and they're opening my juvenile record, and they're talking about sending me to prison for multiple years. And I was looking at, the DA wanted me to go to prison for minimum of 4 years, and pretty much that would no early sentence, like 4 years. This what it's going to be. And I just remember that feeling. I was terrified. I was scared. I didn't, of course, didn't want to go to prison for 4 years, and I was still, young and still a teenager. I was 19 years old. I had dealt with addiction at that point for going on a decade. About 8 years, and so I was able to go to Rafa Treatment Center in Atala, Alabama. And Rafa is a faith-based treatment center, and it's in Atala, Alabama, and that's where I met Rainey Childress, of course, who y'all have gotten to know well over these weeks and months, and so that's where I got to meet him. He was the clinical director at the time over Rafa and all of Family Life Center. He had not retired yet, and that's where I met him. He's the chaplain at Rafa and the church service there. He did of course, the church still heads all that up and everything. But that's where I met him, and that's where I got introduced to him and got introduced to LMA as well. Um, it. I got in there and actually got sent there from the county jail, failed the drug test, and I'd been using in the county jail, and the staff there were shocked. They were like, "Weren't you in jail?" And I said, yes, I was, and so I had to go to detox from the county jail. Went to detox, then went back to Rock. And I'll tell y'all a funny story real quick about Rainey. Once I got back from detox, subconsciously, in the back of my mind, I was wanting to get high again, and so I went in there, and or the director wasn't there that day, but Rainey was there. Him being the clinical director, he was there in his place that day, and I just walked in there and I said, "I don't like how y'all run this place." And he said, "Really?" And he said, "Well, that's odd." And I said, "Yes, I don't like how y'all run this place." And he said, "Can you give me an example?" I said, "No, I don't really have an example." I said, "I just don't like how y'all run this place." And again, subconsciously, I'm wanting to go get high. And he says, "Well," he said, "Well, I don't know what to say." He said, I told him, I said, "Yes, I think I'm just going to go home. I'm going to do some meetings on my own, and I'm just going to go home and do that." And he said, "Okay." He said, "Well, go out there," and he said, "Sit down and wait just a minute." And he called my community corrections officer and told her what was going on. He came out. He said, "Hey," he said, "I guess just go call your community corrections officer and tell her, what you told me and that you want to leave and all that." And I said, "Okay." So I go in another office, call my my officer there, and she said, "Well, Daniel, that's fine if you want to leave." She said, "You go ahead." She said, "But she said, we'll have you picked up. You go into prison for 4 years." And I said, "Ooh," So I got off the phone with her, and I went back in there to Rainey, and I said, "Well," I said, "Rainey," I said, "I think I'm gonna stay." And we, he said, "Okay," we laugh about that a lot now, but what a blessing that I stayed. And my life now is better than I ever could have imagined. I've been clean. November will be 7 years that I've been clean, and of course that's for me. That's 100% absent. I mean, nothing. I don't, nothing at all. I won't have. I don't even drink an energy drink. So I'm very, very weird about all that, but for good reason, So 7 years in November, and one day at a time. But I want to really talk now that you got a little background on me. Having went through Rafa, having went through a rehab program, and having went through the LMA program, or meetings rather, and working that program some. Just I want to really touch on what it meant to me, how I viewed it, and how it helped me. So again, LMA, Life More Abundant. The number one most important thing that LMA did for me was it did help me to regain that relationship with God. It helped me want to participate in that relationship again. And it didn't do it by itself, but in combination with going to church and everything else. LMA to me helped me a lot because it's Christ centered. There's nothing wrong with AA or NA or so. Well, CR's Christ centered, focused somewhat as well, but just how it was so out in the open and more of a traditional AA format, which I really, I love AA's meeting format, but it's just hard when it's, you know, to me, when Jesus is excluded from that, because I firmly believe for you to get clean and you to be successful, long term, eventually, I mean, it's going to involve God, 100%. So that's my views. And being able to participate in a meeting where it's so openly about, Jesus Christ and God, and it's centered on that, was really big for me. I like CR as well. I love the music and all that. But again, I really love the AA format, but having it Christ centered, LMA was sort of the best of all the worlds for me, and really, really just helped me keep Christ at the center of not only my life but my recovery as well. If you're somebody that's been to AA meetings, God's always referred to higher power and this, that, and that. And there's nothing, I'm not knocking that. And that works for a lot of people, but I think honestly for me, long-term recovery, that's what it looks like, is having Jesus and God in the center. And again, with LMA being so openly about Christ and God being in the center, that was big for me. It really helped me become more in tune with God. I was able to, just like the 12 steps, thinking of Christ and all of that, and not having to, because, some of the meetings I said, well, a higher power could be the doorknob over there. And maybe for some people, but again, for me, that's Jesus Christ. And realizing that and being in a meeting where we all are aware of that, and that's out in the open, it made a big difference for me. So knowing, again, came to, just came to the realization that we're powerless over our own, over addiction, and that God, Jesus Christ, can help us with that. He's centered in all those steps in the LMA readings and all the principles. So that was a big thing for me. Um, LMA also, something that's really neat to me, we're all recovering from something, right? So that's one of the biggest things in LMA. It doesn't have to be a drug addiction. It doesn't have to be a drug addiction at all. It could be, we're all recovering from something. So in LMA, it's a group that's really open to anybody, even if there's not a substance abuse problem, or even, you can be addicted to anything. We talk about that a lot too. It doesn't have to be a drug. You can get addicted to food. You can get addicted to watching too much TV. You can get addicted to, just anything, cutting your grass. There's no rhyme or reason there. You can get addicted to anything. And so LMA, again, is for all kinds of people in all kinds of places. And it just like the gospel is, the gospel's for all kinds of people in all kinds of places. LMA is as well. You don't have to have a drug addiction to go to the meetings or participate in the program. We're all recovering from something, so it could be anything that you could imagine. You're accepted there. You're, you have support there. You have people wanting to help you there, no matter what it is that you're going through. To me, that's a beautiful thing. And it helps you connect with all types of people and all types of walks of life, that the LMA program does. There's, instead of a NA, AA, Eating Anonymous, whatever it may be, it's a one size fits all type of thing at LMA. So, you're all in there, and you all can help each other. And again, we're all recovering from something. So it did help me to, again, get in touch with God, get in touch with Christ again, and, come back to that realization of my identity, and have that relationship again, with Jesus. So it was so helpful in that. Having that recovery, going through that recovery, and having Jesus on the forefront, not only at church, but also in those meetings, it does make a big difference. So one of the other biggest things for me, I just really love the victims versus victors. I think that it is a beautiful piece of writing, and it's just so amazingly worded, and it's something that it's my favorite reading from LMA. It has stuck with me so much since then. And I'm going to read just a few of them and just talk a little bit about victims versus victors. But again, just let's see. So just to go through some of these, this is victims versus victors. Number one, victims worry about who is to blame. Victors find a way to make a difference. So when I first was getting clean and I was going through Rafa, I was big about blaming everybody else in the world for my problems. I would never take responsibility for my actions. I would always blame somebody else, and I never was honest with myself, and I was big on blaming. I would, whatever the case may be, if I ended up in jail or whatever, I'd blame. Well, if it wasn't for my this person doing this or getting me pulled up, I wouldn't have went to jail, or if this wouldn't have happened, I blame anybody but me. And so this was big for me. With victims worry about who is to blame, victors find a way to make a difference. I wanted to make a difference, and I wanted to make a difference in, of course, my life, but in the lives of others as well, um, to the best of my ability. And and so making a difference, of course, to me, it started with, again, developing that relationship with Jesus and changing my life. But that was big for me. I had to quit blaming others, realize I was the problem, that I did every bit of that stuff and caused all my issues. So I had to realize that, quit blaming, and then I wanted to make a difference. So that was big for me. That was a big one for me. Number two, just for instance, victims complain, victors take action. So, another one that, and that applies to, I mean, my goodness, we all of these apply to so much more than just addiction or even recovery, any of this. But victims complain, victors take actions. So, it's easy to complain about things all day long and this, that, and the other. And, oh, I'm sick of this. I'm tired of this. I can't stand this. And it's easy to be a victim. It's so easy to be a victim in life. I mean, it's the path of least resistance, and it's what so many of us do so often is we become a victim. We play a victim, and it's so easy to complain about things nonstop and just be um, ill and just complaining. But the counterpart to that, victors take action. You don't have to complain. Number three, victims find comfort in the weakness of others. Victors help others to develop their strengths. It's a really good one there. So, don't find comfort in the weakness of others. Help others to develop their strengths. Number four, victims agonize over yesterday's losses. Victors prepare for the opportunities of tomorrow. That's another big one. I was bad about looking back at the past and pity party again. Victims agonize over yesterday's losses. It's easy to, oh, poor pitiful me, getting a pity party, feel bad for yourself, and that's easy. And as a victim, it's easy to do that. So again, that's the victim mindset. But victors prepare for the opportunities of tomorrow. Number five, victims take credit. Victors hold themselves accountable. So another real good one there. Number six, victims search for quick and easy answers to their problems. Victors spend the time and effort needed to build the life they desire. Very good one, and very true for me. And when I was changing my life and trying to build a new life, it wasn't going to be a quick and easy answer as far as fixing myself and all the issues I had. It was easy to be a victim and think that way, but to be a victor, I had to spend the time and effort needed to build the life I desire. Number seven, victims say I'm too busy. Victors say I'll find the time. Number eight, victims look for excuses not to even try. victors look for ways to get it done. Number 9, victims ask for pity, victors look for a challenge. So, you know, those were just so powerful to me. And you talk about a reading that just really, really just stood out to me and made such a big impact on my recovery. Hearing that in the readings every week, the victims versus victors, I think made a big difference in my mindset, how I approached things, how I looked at things. And I apologize if my video quality has went downhill. It's gotten dark out here on me, but it was just so important to hear that, and that's a very powerful reading. It helped me to shift my mindset from being a victim, and I had been a victim for many years. Many years. I had been ever since my mom died. It was poor, pitiful me, victim, 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 all up until I went through Rafa and got involved with LMA and understood that Christ is at the center of not only LMA, but it's at the center of everything. But it was such an instrumental reading. We all can learn from that and learn that it's so easy to be a victim. But every morning when we wake up, let's choose not to be a victim, but let's choose to be a victor. Every morning, if we just start every day that way, I'm going to be a victor today. I'm going to be a victor today. I just want to say a special thanks to Rainey and in Rafa and in LMA. It's been great for me. It's LMA has, and Rainey has been instrumental in my life. I love them to death. I feel honored that I was asked to speak this week. I don't know if I said much that helped or made any sense, but it's pretty much time to get off here. So hope you enjoyed my little short testimony and a little bit about what LMA meant to me. And yeah, y'all have a great week.